Well, welcome to Research Action Research Class 9921. You are enrolled for this course at the Columbia International University. My name is Dr. Joe Liddell, and I have the privilege of helping you work through this action research course that is designed around your dissertation proposal. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the course description and then move into why do we want to research? Why do we want to go down this road as researchers who are thinking through a proposal and eventually a dissertation topic for writing? So let's just work through the description here of the course. You should see this. I've highlighted or bolded out the most important terms that you can find in this particular course description. And you have course description for all your courses that you'll take. So this course is designed around you, right? It has the intention about you as the researcher. So we're going to equip you to analyze and to interpret. Those are words associated with field research and you going out to look at a particular possible problem area, problem statement that might arise. And so you're going to report on it. You're going to evaluate. You're going to make some determination about your findings. You will be prepared to understand the findings. So not just put it into a piece of written statement, but what is going on and within this variable that you need to report on. And then lastly, you're going to collate all that data collection together and draw some final conclusion and make the recommendations at the end for the reader. And so that's what we're preparing for you in this class. But before we do that, we want to talk about the value that we should have in terms of research from a Christian perspective. Number one, we're observing worldviews. Ultimately, that's what we're doing in this course, or as we push you toward field research, as you begin to unravel a problem statement that occurs in any body of literature. You're like, well, what's the core issue here in this particular population zone? And so you find literature, you find the problem, you begin to define it through some RQs, and that's the area of research. But we are doing it because we know that there are different worldviews that exist in any given organization, people group, and so on. Secondly is how we process that new information in those experiences. Everyone shapes experience differently, and so we want to be able to understand why that exists in a particular organization or even people group, or it could explore a denomination, it could explore a church. Any and all fields of study are now emerging up as important subject areas for this particular class. We're going to narrow it, of course, and we're going to encourage you to do so to make sure it stays within the area of leadership, organizational theory, and we can explore some other subdomains as well. Number three, what are the assumptions one makes? Just remember that we all make certain assumptions that go into our experience, and so the researcher is trying to navigate those particular concepts and constructs that are built in within a particular group you're studying. And then lastly, we make aware of the beliefs and values of a given group, and we're wanting to make some then recommendations or findings in the conclusion of our study. There are four reasons that we can look at, or four areas that we could study our subject domains. The first one is empirical research, which ultimately considers the area of data, and we're looking at why certain things exist in a certain society and what are the reasons behind the reasons behind that empirical data. So for example, if we're looking at homelessness in a particular area of our city, we look at data points that might inform our overall results or application to that data set. Of course, we look at reason. Reason, we just know by reason. We have been educated, and we don't make guesstimates. We know there's a verifiable ways for that to work out. And then thirdly, intuition is the experiential side of each of us, and we have feelings, we have emotions, and then lastly is the area of faith. Faith carries an important part of faith dimensions in our life, a spiritual story that shapes our lives, and so it's all different, and we want to be able to make a research observation, put that into action, and then work through it toward the end product. Empirical research looks at the primary method of science, particularly the area of data. What constitutes a legitimate way to know truth? It looks at the theoretical, or at least the repeated observation can be done over time to check the validity of that problem statement. It repeats the experiment, is the heart of that scientific method, and some of you are really good at data points, and you want to understand why certain things exist and what's the underlying data that pushes that particular problem statement forward. When we think about errors or perception, we often look at the needing to know more about the experience underlying that particular problem statement. So that's empirical research. Some additional notes on empirical research is this, that Christians often tend to only select the data that supports their claim, and they ignore the other data components that may be in that particular area of study. And so you don't want to be that type of Christian exploring a particular area of study geared toward empirical research. Here's an example biblically as we think about it. Job accused his friends of only looking at the instances where the righteous prosper, and they ignore all the other numerous examples of the righteous people suffering and also the wicked prosper. So what happens in empirical research for some of us who are Christians, we end up segment our data sets and we don't actually explore the whole set, looking at all the different corners and scenarios that exist in that particular area. Reason. Some of us are in this particular area of research. We love reason, and we use this often. We're strong at it. So this includes deductive and inductive reasoning. And as you read through this, you see some notes here. Deductive reasoning seeks to understand correct premises when put together in a valid way, such as lead to true correlations. This gets us into what we call quantitative analysis or quantitative research. We connect variable elements to a population zone, such as Baseball Hall of Fame. Mickey Mantle's is a great player, and so we connect those two points of study. Inductive reasoning moves a little bit differently, looking at how the researcher can argue that in many cases people with a certain disease are found to carry the virus and is not normally found in healthy people. So we're trying to draw out why the virus is spreading in certain population zone where in other population zone it does not exist. And so what's the logic behind it? Well, it attempts to give the thought process and it begins to determine the approximate possibility. Why does this exist? So it often uses non-mental processes of the world, and it always addresses what we call it as the cause and effect reality. So that's reason, or putting reason as a particular construct within the field of research. And of course, there's intuition. Intuition, this is what people have in terms of perceived thought. This is often thought of as mystical or insight that someone might have. It's not based on logic or empirical research that can be done. And so this is often phenomenological research, looking for the phenomenon within a particular organization or people group that you would like to study. And ultimately, this is the answer. It feels right. It feels right. I feel you used it within a Christian environment. You know, I feel the Spirit has led me to this particular decision making. And so, you know, we try to find that empirical data source, but it may not be there. You just feel it, and therefore you move toward action in that particular direction. And then lastly, there's faith. And when we talk about the truth of faith, it is real. It's based on trust. It's based on the validity often within Scripture. And so it's the personal story of those writers of the Old and New Testament. It also includes our story as well, our testimony. And we hear people talk about, you know, I came to Christ through another person's story and how they shared their faith, and I trusted in the Lord and the gospel. And so Scripture plays that important role in the development of faith and the maturity of our faith So that's some areas for us to look at when we think about the 4 areas of acquiring knowledge in the area of research. Now I want to speak on our last slide here on data. One thing to remember about data is it is the raw materials that make up the interpretation process. For example, consider the load of lumber to build different styles of home. What do you need in order to build a 2-story home or a ranch house? Or if you're going to build a house on near ocean, what might you need in terms of the raw material? So the more data you have, the greater it will be in the diversity of interpretation. And that really is the key to any type of research. The more data you have, the more you have to process that information and make some interpretation about the data. The more the population that you have, the more you have to sort through the information there that make up those raw data points. So just be careful in terms of how you are going to assess your data. Number one, how big your population is going to be. And we'll talk about population and sample size in the forthcoming lectures here as we move through this course. But just wanted to draw that as a final conclusion for this mini lecture. Hopefully that will help you as you navigate the material and as we move forward in the next video.